Hello, I'm Chris of the Dead. While I'm slowly getting work done on Low Poly Nights Episode 2 between job hunting and surviving the current year of 2025, I wanted to do a little Q&A video between major episode updates. I also wanted to use this video as an excuse to show off a public tease of the first shots of Episode 2, though these are subject to change or improvements. So that's probably what you're looking at right now is the footage for this video. But let's get into the questions, and feel free to leave more questions in the comments, and I might make another one of these at some point. Ran the Raccoon, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, are you only going to be working on Low Poly Nights? I hope you keep trying out new stuff as well as work with the series. Probably not only working on Low Poly Nights. I tend to juggle projects and ideas, but making new original assets takes time, considering that a good chunk of my day right now is dedicated to job hunting. Most of my past animations are little 30-second videos for one joke or punchline from games I like, and I might still do them every so often, but I also would like to make low poly versions of my own style of Halo characters to continue doing jokes and scenes inspired from those games. Or maybe my own legally distinct Helldivers or Space Marine, since Helldivers 2 and Space Marine 2 have been games I've enjoyed in the past year. New Days 2100 asks, does Blue have any siblings? I've never given any real lore thought to him as a character, but he is a continuation of Blue the Argonian from my Skyrim animations I've been doing for years. He might have siblings at some point, but for right now, I think I'm just going to focus on him as the only main Drakizard folk adventuring around with Shirk. I think this name is an abbreviation for Golden Claw. Do you have any particular focus or themes you'd like to explore? And in parentheses, I'd like to define theme as an idea plus an opinion. It is the creator's specific views regarding the central ideas of the work. So far, Low Poly Nights has been a fusion of my style of slapstick and absurdist comedy with the tropes and quirks of the Elder Scrolls games and RPGs that I like. A funny thing about one of the main punchlines of Episode 1 was that the whole "your attack missed" joke was, for close to 10 years, I hated Morrowind's combat. But after 3 or 4 attempts to get into Morrowind, it was finally able to click for me a few months ago, and I was able to finish the main quest and the Tribunal DLC so far. I made that same dice-rolled combat joke before Morrowind clicked for me, over on my Oblivion loading account on the old Bird app before switching to Blue Sky, as somebody who really hated the chance to hit dice rolls, instead of now the Low Poly Nights version where it was done with more understanding and appreciation of those systems. I still overall dislike everything being dice rolls in Morrowind, but it doesn't bother me as much now. As for expressing my own opinions on gaming or RPGs, I feel like if I include my own commentary on the joke, it feels like it's more of a vehicle for complaining rather than a joke meant for entertainment. As for themes, I haven't really put any thought into story or narrative themes other than fantasy RPGs as a whole as a vehicle to make people laugh and hopefully brighten some people's days. I grew up with Cartoon Network shows like Ed, Edd and Eddy, so I'm not really trying to use my work to teach a serious lesson, but I can always get behind people being good people and looking out for others and those less fortunate. Stray Cat asks, main inspirations for the animation, any big goals for the future, and favorite food. Main inspirations are really the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion and 3 Morrowind. While I like Oblivion the most, followed by Skyrim and then Morrowind, Skyrim is at a base level of fun and modern quality that it doesn't really have as many quirks to poke fun at that stand out as purely Skyrim jokes, compared to the quirks and systems of Oblivion and Morrowind. Given enough time, I'm sure I'll start throwing in general D&D and Baldur's Gate 3 jokes, but for now I'm on a huge Elder Scrolls kick again, though for me it never really goes away, it just ebbs and flows. This current Elder Scrolls kick included my very recent first successful attempt to get into Morrowind, and a slight dip in playing Oblivion before I stopped posting new Oblivion loading jokes to Twitter. I'm still working through posting the old backlog of photoshopped screenshots and loading screens to Blue Sky and Tumblr. The account is Oblivion Loading, by the way. But I usually come back to Oblivion every few weeks just to enjoy the vibes, chill, and get inspirations and screenshots for the joke account. Any big goals for the future? A hopeless daydream at the moment is to bring in enough money through channel memberships, Patreon and Ko-fi to make this my day job, but right now it's just to keep surviving and try to find a work-from-home 3D animation job, preferably in game dev, that's as good as the good times of my last animation job before the work dried up. It would be awesome to find a programmer to make a super small-scale PC game based on low poly nights, though right now it would have to be volunteer work because I'm still searching for a job myself. But some kind of 2.5D co-op hack-and-slash horde mode game, like Castle Crashers but just the arena fights, something like that. That'd be pretty cool to see that come to reality. I don't really have any big game dev ideas of my own, just some general vibes I've enjoyed over the years. Favorite food? Probably American Southern-style biscuits and gravy, but with bacon gravy instead of sausage gravy. Though, that's good too. I'm lactose intolerant, so it's either a gamble or I need to take 2 lactase tablets. I love breakfast foods most overall, but sushi is really good too. Dr. Droney, where did the idea of combining fish and knights come from? And do you have a favorite fish? The idea came from adapting a D&D homebrew race I commissioned a friend to help me make, and they were a race of shark people. And ever since I tried Oblivion for the first time and decided, I know what it's like to be human, so I'll pick a character species that are the furthest thing from human when given the chance. If I'm being honest, I have had so many friends in the anthro/furry community that I'm just used to fantasy races being based on animals and monsters. The original Sharkfolk illustrations have digitigrade legs like the elites from Halo, but having the characters be at least as different as the Khajiits or Argonians from Skyrim or Oblivion is enough to make things more interesting, at least to my tastes. Do I have a favorite fish? For eating salmon for sushi, I don't really like grilled salmon as much. I'll eat it with some good sauces, but I prefer sushi-style fish, unless it's breaded fish for a sandwich, then I like cod. But as for fish appreciation, I love nurse sharks. And not gray nurse sharks, just regular nurse sharks. They are adorable sea puppies and really chill. Shirk, the Sharkfolk character, is based on a nurse shark, and that's where the skin coloration for him comes from. Sven9263, but what are the racial bonuses of Sharkfolk versus Drakizard folk? Drakizard folk are basically my own homebrew version of Argonians from Elder Scrolls. Blue's design is basically just a low-poly, legally distinct Argonian, but I also love D&D's lizard folk, which are basically the same thing as Argonians with a different body design, and the D&D Dragonborn. So I may add a breath weapon for the sake of matching the traits to the mashup's portmanteau name of Dragon Lizard folk. But as for the shark folk, in my original D&D homebrew, I gave them a few basic traits that might be considered OP. The first is lightning damage resistance, since they're people adapted to an underwater region with a permanent lightning storm raging on the water's surface. They've just grown up used to the lightning flowing through the water, so they have a resistance to it. A small amount of damage to opponents who attack them with bare skin punches, because shark skin is smooth in one direction and rough like sandpaper in the other due to the directions of their microscopic denticle scales. And last was an effect that functions like detect life in the Elder Scrolls games, but only when they are in contact with other living creatures connected by the same body of water. This is because sharks have an organ that can sense electrical fields in the water to help them locate other animals that give off faint bioelectric signals just from being alive. I don't think I've gotten any of that wrong. I might have. I'm not a biologist, just somebody who picked up a love of sharks from Discovery Channel's Shark Week when growing up. Hopefully this was insightful and entertaining. I don't really know how long episode 2 will take because I still have most of the shots to animate, some after I get voice lines from some friends, and then I have to render, composite, edit, and mix audio for the whole video. But hopefully not too long. I'll try to post updates to the channel's community tab and to my Blue Sky account and Patreon, links for all of those in the description, along with hopefully a transcript of this video because making subtitles on YouTube is excruciatingly annoying. But that's it for me. Have a good one.